Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to go deep on something super relevant to, well, pretty much all of us.
I'd say so, yeah. Parenting. It's a big one.
It really is. And today, we're doing a deep dive into parenting styles, not just skimming the surface, like really getting into how these different approaches can shape a kid's whole life.
Absolutely. There's so much research out there, and it's fascinating how these styles can affect everything from a child's self-esteem to like how well they do in school.
And I was reading some of this research and I was surprised by some of the findings. Like, did you know there's one style that's consistently linked to higher levels of mental well-being in kids?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But before we jump into the specifics, maybe it's good to start with the basics.
Totally, back to the foundations. Where do we even begin with understanding these different styles?
Well, it all starts with two key dimensions: warmth and control.
Okay, warmth and control. Makes sense. I mean, those seem pretty straightforward, but I have a feeling there's more to it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Think of it as a spectrum.
Hmm.
So you can have high warmth with high control, low warmth with low control. You get the idea, all the combinations.
Right.
And it's how these things mix together that determines those four main parenting styles we hear about: authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and neglectful.
Okay, so let's break those down, starting with, I think the ones people get mixed up the most, authoritative and authoritarian. What's the real difference there? I mean, in a way that, like, really shows how it plays out with kids.
Yeah, totally. It's
Yeah.
a super common confusion.
Yeah.
So imagine it's bedtime. An authoritative parent might say something like, "Hey, it's time for bed, but you can choose one book for us to read together." Setting limits, but giving choices within those limits.
Got it.
Now, an authoritarian parent, they'd probably just be like, "Bedtime, lights out." No discussion. It's about control and obedience.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a really clear example. I can see how they would feel different as a kid. But what about the long-term effects? Does the research say anything about how those styles actually impact kids as they grow up?
Definitely. It's pretty clear that kids raised with that authoritative style, they tend to be more independent, have better self-esteem, and actually do better in school too, because they're encouraged to think for themselves, problem solve, all that good stuff.
Makes sense.
Now, with the authoritarian style, it can be a different story. Some kids, they might struggle with making decisions, might be less confident, and as teenagers, could even be more likely to rebel. It really can affect their whole personality.
That's heavy. Okay, so we've covered those two. What about permissive and neglectful parenting? I feel like those styles are often talked about in more negative light. What makes them so potentially damaging?
Well, with permissive parenting, it often comes from a good place, right? You want to be loving and supportive.
Hmm.
But think about a parent who never says no or always gives in when a kid throws a tantrum.
Right.
It might seem kind, but it can actually lead to kids who have trouble with boundaries, self-control, respecting others.
I see.
Then there's neglectful parenting. That's where there's just not much warmth or control. And that can be the toughest, sadly. It's linked to some serious issues like behavioral problems and mental health challenges.
Right. It sounds like finding that balance between warmth and control is really the key.
Right.
But I'm curious, how does culture play into all of this? I mean, is it possible that a style that's seen as positive in one culture might be viewed totally differently in another?
Oh, absolutely. It happens all the time. What might seem super strict, like authoritarian, in one culture could be totally normal in another. The way different cultures think about discipline, independence, even how you show your feelings, it all influences parenting big time. And parents need to be aware of those differences.
So there's no magic formula. It's
Yeah.
really about adapting to your own child and considering your cultural background.
Exactly. It's about being responsive.
Hmm.
What works for one kid might not work for another, even in the same family. And as they grow and change, you might need to adapt your style too.
So much to think about.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to parents who are like actively trying to find that sweet spot, that balance between warmth and control?
I'd say first, take a look at yourself. What are your strengths as a parent? And where could you maybe grow a bit? Think about how you react when your kid is acting up. Do you jump to punishment or do you try to see their perspective?
Yeah,
It's a learning curve. No one's perfect.
that's a good point. It's not about being perfect. It's about always learning, right?
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for help. There are so many resources out there. Other parents, experts. You don't have to figure it all out.
And speaking of not being alone, let's touch on blended families. They often have a whole other layer of complexity when it comes to parenting. Any advice for couples who are trying to figure out a unified approach?
Communication is key for sure. Talk openly about your own styles, what you expect, and even where you disagree. You're a team. And the goal is to create a consistent, supportive environment for the kid, even if you come from different backgrounds.
This has been so insightful. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to emphasize that there's no one right way to parent. The biggest takeaway is just understanding how these different styles can impact kids, and then making conscious choices that fit your child's needs.
I completely agree.
And just a final thought for you all as you continue on this parenting journey. Now that you know more about these different styles, think about how your own upbringing might be influencing your approach. It's something we don't always realize, but it can be really powerful to examine. Thanks for joining us.